Have you ever wondered why comfort feels so sweet in the moment, yet leaves us restless inside? And why the hardest paths, though painful, often lead us to true peace? There was once a young monk named Tenzin. Though in the monastery he was quietly known as the lazy one. When he first arrived as a boy, he was bright and curious, full of questions about life and the mysteries of the world. But as the years passed, his hunger for comfort grew stronger than his hunger for wisdom. He discovered the pleasure of doing less, and little by little, that became his way of life. Each morning, before dawn, the bell rang. Monks rose silently, washed, and gathered in the prayer hall. The sound of chanting filled the air, deep and powerful, echoing against the stone walls. But Tenzin lingered in bed, pulling the blanket over his head. "I'll join later," he whispered to himself. But later never came. By the time he woke, prayers were ending and breakfast was already being served. When others went to the river to fetch water, Tenzin would wander into the garden and find a shaded spot to nap. When others bent over scrolls to memorize the teachings of the wise men, Tenzin would sit nearby and doodle in the dirt with a stick. And when others practiced meditation, sitting cross-legged for hours in stillness, Tenzin would shift uncomfortably and slip away, muttering, "This isn't for me." He wasn't cruel, nor was he foolish. In fact, he was clever. He knew how to smile at the right moment, how to make excuses, how to avoid punishment. The elder monks thought, "He is young, time will mature him." But months passed into years, and still, Tenzin remained the same. Outwardly, he seemed carefree. He laughed the loudest, told jokes, and strolled about with an easy smile. But at night, when the lamps were dim and the monastery was silent, Tenzin lay awake, staring at the ceiling beams above his bed. A strange heaviness sat on his chest. His body was rested, but his heart was not. He asked himself questions he could not answer. Why do I feel so empty? Why do others look so alive while I feel so dull? He envied the other monks, though he would never admit it. They worked hard, yet they walked lightly. Their eyes shone with clarity, their voices carried calm strength. They rose before the sun and labored all day, yet seemed freer than him who did nothing. The comfort he clung to began to taste bitter, like sweet fruit that turns rotten in the mouth. One morning, after years of watching him waste his days, the head monk called for Tenzin. The master was an old man, his back bent, his face carved with wrinkles like river channels across stone. Yet his eyes were sharp, full of fire. "Tenzin," the master said, "come with me." Without a word, the old monk led him beyond the monastery gates. The air was crisp, the mountain path steep. At first he thought this would be easy, just a walk. But within minutes, his chest heaved, sweat ran down his back, and his legs shook. He groaned, "Master, I cannot go further." The master said nothing. Instead, he handed Tenzin a small leather bag filled with stones. "Carry this. With every step you take, drop one stone." Tenzin scowled, but obeyed. He slung the bag over his shoulder and dragged himself up the path. Each step was a battle. The bag pressed on him like a weight of regret. His mind raged. Why must I do this? Why am I punished? He thought of quitting, of throwing the bag away, of turning back. But the master's silent presence kept him moving. Step by step, stone by stone, the climb continued. At first, the stones seemed endless. His breath burned, his knees wobbled. He cursed the mountain, cursed the path, cursed himself. But slowly, with every stone he dropped, the bag grew lighter. With every step, something inside him shifted. His body still ached, but his spirit flickered with a strange fire he had never felt. Hours later, they reached the peak. The valley stretched out below, the sky wide and endless. Tenzin collapsed on the rocks, gasping for breath, yet deep inside, he felt alive. He laughed through his exhaustion, not because he had energy, but because he had discovered strength. The master turned to him. His voice was soft, but carried the weight of truth. "Tenzin, do you see? Laziness is like carrying stones in your heart. At first it feels easy, but day by day, the burden grows heavier. Discipline is like this climb. It feels heavy at first, but each step makes you lighter. Which will you choose?" The words struck Tenzin harder than the climb itself. He remembered his wasted mornings, his unfinished tasks, his restless nights. He realized that the comfort he had loved had been no comfort at all. It was a prison. His laziness had weighed him down more than work ever could. From that day, he began to change. The next morning, he rose with the others at dawn. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he stood anyway. He carried water from the river, though his shoulders ached. He bent over the garden, his hands blistering from the tools. He sat in meditation, his legs trembling, sweat dripping down his back. It was not easy. Many times he failed. Many times he longed for the old comfort. In the biting cold of winter, when icy wind sliced through his robe, he wanted to run back to bed. During fasting, when hunger twisted his stomach, he wanted to steal an extra bowl of rice. And during meditation, when silence grew unbearable, he wanted to quit. But each time, he remembered the bag of stones. He remembered how heavy his heart had been when he avoided effort, and how light it had become when he embraced it. That memory carried him through. Seasons passed. Slowly, Tenzin changed. His back grew strong, his hands steady, his eyes calm. The restless boy became a man of quiet power. He no longer envied others because peace had rooted in him. He no longer feared effort because he knew it gave him freedom. Years later, pilgrims who visited the monastery often sought out the monk named Tenzin. They found him tending the garden, sweeping the courtyard, or sitting in meditation. His presence was steady, his voice gentle yet firm. They listened to him and felt something stir inside them. They couldn't believe it when they learned he was once known as the laziest of all the monks. But Tenzin did not hide his past. He would tell them with a smile, "I once carried laziness like stones in my heart. It promised comfort, but gave me emptiness. Only when I chose the harder path of discipline did I learn the truth, that effort is not the enemy of peace. It is the path to peace. Laziness feels light today, but it becomes heavier with time. Discipline feels heavy today, but it makes you lighter tomorrow. Peace is not found in avoiding effort, but in walking through it." If this story touched your heart, join us at Life Lessons Library. Subscribe now and let every story guide you closer to your true purpose.